Welcome Grapevine to our first online service. I'm going to pray and then my mom's going to give an object lesson about the theme for today. Dear Lord, thank you that we can all gather here this morning online. Please be with us throughout this lockdown and that you can speak to us this morning.
I'm about to make my favourite sandwich. Now I wonder what your favourite sandwich is. I know that Tegan's favourite sandwich is tuna and mayo sandwich. Byron's is cheese and mayo. This is what my favourite sandwich is. Some bread, packet of chips, any chips will do. I love that kind of sandwich. Put it all in. Don't forget the ketchup, that's really important, over the chips. And this is my sandwich. This is such a good sandwich. If you haven't tried it, you must try it. Why am I making a sandwich on this Sunday morning? Well, this is like us and the church. I've been thinking these last few days, we're the church, but what is the church? It's no longer the building. We're meeting online. So we can still be the church to each other. The bread. There's so many people that can encourage each other. There are so many people that can reach out to other people. The chips. There's so many people that are praying for each other. Even in our home groups, I'm just amazed at our ladies group that are just encouraging each other all the time, just to spur on through this lockdown. See, we can be the sandwich, we can be the bread. But if you take out one of those, if you take out the encouragement, or you take out the prayer, you take out the chips, then I'm left with ketchup and the bread. That'd be quite disgusting. It's only a sandwich if you have all three parts: encouragement, the prayer, and the thinking of others. Now, especially for Team JC quickly, I just know that a few kids in Team JC this holiday, well not really a holiday, this lockdown, are having their birthdays, which kind of sucks. They're not being able to see their friends, they can't celebrate they wanted to. So I encourage each one in Team JC just to send that little encouragement message for those birthdays that we're going to be missing. For adult church, just encourage each other daily. We hear so much about the corona stuff, so we just need all the positive stuff on our home groups. Let's be the sandwich that is amazing like this, and you must try it.
Worshipping together. But we thought just before we get into worship, we'd get you excited about what worship is all about, remind you what worship is all about. So watch this next 2-minute clip and get excited for the worship time.
Which is cool. Some people are more expressive in worship, some people more subtle, and it's all good. I go to a church that's pretty expressive in worship. It's a hand-raising church. That's what it is, right? That's what, Anybody here go to a hand-raising church? Am I here? Sweet. Who here does not go to a hand-raising church? Some of you are trying, you're like, I can't. I want to, Tim. I need to get some momentum. Totally cool. But hey, if you're not used to going to a hand-raising church, you want to go and join us, feel free to join us, but don't feel like you got to join right in, okay? Start slow. We got a lot of different hand raises that we use. We actually have names for our hand raises. So I'm going to walk you through real quick, okay, what they are, just to let you know. Say you're at my church, music is rocking. Start slow, hands in the pockets, little elbow flap, you're fine. Very subtle. Get warmed up, get your heart rate up. When you're warmed up, start with the first one. Ready? Carry the TV. Carry the TV, that's our first one. Very subtle. Go to big screen, a little wider. Next one's my fish was this big. My fish was this big. If you're a liar, you go out there, that's fine, don't worry about it. Jesus loves you, grace. Next one's hold my baby, hold my baby. Got dueling light bulbs, that's our next one, dueling light bulbs. We got goalpost, everybody knows goalpost. Throwing a heartburn, a lot of people like to do heartburn. Double heartburn, right back to goalpost. What's my favorite? Mufasa. Mufasa, that's my favorite. The circle of life. Tim, can you go higher? Yes, you can. You can take one hand, go a bunch of different stuff. Pointer, hatchet, schoolroom. Release the doves, give the Lord a high five, press it out. A lot of women like to wash the window. Wash the window. And when you're comfortable there, go for the big three. Village people, Rocky, touchdown. There you go, there's your big three.
Good morning, Grapevine Church. Andrea and Emil coming to you live from Wurtizip, and we just want to ask not live, this is pre-recorded, but online church, it's a new thing. We just want to encourage you wherever you are, if you're in your PJs, whatever.
Bacon and egg roll, I hope.
Hopefully you're eating a bacon and egg roll. Stand or sit with us and let's worship the Lord together in song.
Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where your streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name, and blessed be your name when I'm found in the desert place. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name, and blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering. Though there's pain in the offering, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed
Church. This next song is one of our favorites, and I know it's a favorite of Grapevine Church, and it's really uncertain times right now, but we have a God who never fails us. So join with us as we sing this to our wonderful, unfailing, ever-loving Savior.
You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep. My faith will stand. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. Your grace abounds to deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you've never failed, and you won't start now. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine.
It is Sunday morning. It is our first online service. Thank you to Ryan. Thank you to my family. Thank you to Emil and Andrea for helping us put it all together. And I just want to share with you for the next 10-15 minutes. Basically, just following on the Hebrews theme. For those of you who don't know, I was really compelled last week after the president's speech just to put in an attempt to do something and to be of an encouragement to some, to put my quiet times on Facebook. You can find it quite easily. Just go to our website, grapevinechurch.co.za, link on to latest news. It'll take you directly to our Facebook page. And there, normally around about 7:30, is my morning devotion that I'm just sharing with everybody as we go on this journey. But this morning, I wanted to share with you from what would have been my next chapter in the devotion in Hebrews, but actually thought it would be great to share it with you as an encouragement as we continue in this lockdown period. As you all know, I grew up in Johannesburg. I'm an avid Lions supporter. Literally 50k's, 40k's up the road from where I grew up was Loftus Versfeld, where the Blue Bulls were. And as you can imagine, there is a river called the Yixke that separates the northern Pretoria crowd to the southern Johannesburg crowd. And quite frankly, I spent my whole childhood growing up absolutely hating Blue Bulls. As you know, I supported the Lions when they were at their worst, and they even got worse after that. I supported them. They are, in my opinion, I still think Alton Yankees is the best fly half in South African rugby, head and shoulders over anybody else. Could be biased. But it's interesting, as I moved overseas to the UK, and then as I moved down to Cape Town, what I discovered was that actually I love to support both those teams against everybody else. If the Blue Bulls come and play the Stormers down in Cape Town, being an avid Gautenger, I will definitely support the Blue Bulls against the Stormers. And even watching from overseas, Super 14 had a real heart for the Blue Bulls. And this is important. I share that with you because it's going to speak into what we're looking at this morning. I have been journeying through the book of Hebrews, and what would have been the next devotion was Hebrews chapter 3 verse 1 to 6, and this is what it says. Well then, my brothers and sisters, you are God's holy ones, and you share the call from heaven. So think carefully about Jesus, the apostle and high priest of our confession of faith. He was faithful to the one who appointed him, just as Moses was faithful in all God's house. He deserves much more glory than Moses, you see. Just as the one who builds a house deserves more glory than the house. For every house is built by someone, but the one who builds all things is God. And Moses was faithful as a servant in all his house, thereby bearing witness to the things that were yet to be spoken of. But the Messiah is over God's house as a son. What is that house? It is us. Those of us who hold on tightly to the free delight and confidence of our hope. There was a real tension that had grown up amongst the early Christians that you discover here, and what the writer to the Hebrews is busy hinting at. There were those who were of a Jewish persuasion, deeply committed to Moses, deeply committed to the law, and saw Jesus as a good prophet who brought new insights into the law, but quite frankly was under Moses. On the other hand, you had the Christians who had accepted and had committed their lives to the cause of Christianity, and they saw Jesus far superior to anybody else, including Moses. And the writer to the Hebrews is not drawn into either side of those arguments. In fact, he says both are important. Moses is important, yes he is, but Jesus is more important. But you cannot discount Moses. He says it there, doesn't he? In verse 2, he was faithful to the one who appointed him, just as Moses was faithful in all God's house. He deserves much more glory than Moses, you see, just as the one who builds a house deserves more glory than the house. For every house is built by someone, but the one who builds all things is God. And Moses was faithful as a servant in all his house. Important to get that. What the writer to the Hebrews is saying is that Jesus is the one who built the house. He builds a house. Jesus built this house. In fact, in the earlier chapters, we saw that all things were created by Jesus and for Jesus and through Jesus. He builds a house. Moses was a faithful servant that worked in the house. But Moses never built the house. And as a faithful servant who was working in the house, as we see down in verse 5 and 6, Moses was faithful as a servant in all his house, thereby bearing witness to all things that were yet to be spoken of. We look back at Moses, the faithful servant, who had no idea that what he was doing was paving the way for the Messiah, God's ultimate plan to save the world to come. He was faithful in executing what God had wanted. And so, as we spoke this morning, the importance of us as Christians remembering our history, the Moses story, the Exodus story, such important stories in our journey and struggle as Christians in the world today, we must not forget that Moses was a faithful servant of God, paving the way for basically to be where you and I are this morning. But Jesus is the one who builds the house. And we see right early on in creation, he is the one that was at present, the Spirit of God was at present at that creation and spoke life into the world and then blew his breath into humanity. Remember, right at the end of just before Jesus was going to ascend to heaven, in John, he calls his closest disciples together and reenacts that moment in the creation story. He says to the early disciples, as he has them gathered around him, he says to them, just as the Father has sent me, now I am sending you. And then he breathed on them, reenacting that moment in creation where Yahweh breathed his Spirit into humanity. And in that moment, on those disciples, he was breathing the Spirit onto them, reenacting that moment to say, a new creation has appeared. I built the house originally, and I am now building the new created house. But this is huge. Listen to what he says. But the Messiah, verse 6, is over God's house as a son. What is that house? It is us. That is massive. There you have it. What is that house? It is us. Any early Jewish person, when you mentioned the word God's house, would have gone straight to the temple. The temple was the picture of God's house here on earth. And in the new creation, as we read, that house, it is us. This debunks a lot of the junk we hear in the West, that what we're waiting for is for the second temple to be built in Jerusalem on the site of the old. When that happens, the Messiah will come again. Here's a verse that basically goes, what is the temple? What is God's house in the new creation? It is us. You and I are the new temple of God. And just as Jesus, as we read up at the top, is our apostle, the one appointed by the Father, and our high priest that stands in the gap between us and the Father and us. In the same way, as brothers and sisters of the high priest and apostle Jesus, as co-brothers and sisters together, we are the temple. We are the new house of God. We are the ones that stand in the gap between the world and God and the world. And we know that this new creation has not been completed yet, that we are God's house, but more than that, the entire world is God's house. And the first Jewish people would have seen the temple as a picture of the world, that God's desire is that he loves this world, John 3 verse 16, and that his heart is to be with his people in this world. And as God's house, you and I, we are bringing that message to the world. Look at what it says at the end. What is that house? It is us. Those of us who hold on tightly to the free delight and confidence of our hope. Those of us who hold on tightly to the free delight and confidence of our hope. What does it mean? To hold on tightly to the free delight and confidence of our hope. Our hope is not pie in the sky. Our hope is not wishful thinking like we see so much in the world that we are a part of today. Because of what Jesus has done, because of what he is doing, our hope is real. As the coronavirus, as this lockdown, seems to be growing the hopelessness in our society, we as God's house have a real hope that is bigger than what we are seeing. It is a delight and a confidence. We don't stand here as Christians having a wishful thinking, well, I think it's all real. I believe it's all right. We can stand firmly knowing that because of what God has done in history, through his servant Moses, through his son Jesus, how he is rebuilding his house, that one day his house is going to prevail. His kingdom is going to come fully, where sickness, death, illness, sin, all the junk that we face will disappear from his kingdom. That hope is real. That hope is true. But the way we hold onto it tightly is that we need all the time to allow that narrative to impact our lives. We can sit during lockdown and spend hours watching ENCA. Listen to the theories of one guy saying the coronavirus is all a hoax, there is no coronavirus, get on with your lives, to all the junk we hear from so many people, and we can allow the narrative of hopelessness and fear grip us. Or we can go, hang on a second. We have a story that we can hold on tightly to that is free delight. That no matter what happens over the next 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks. In fact, I heard a rumor today that Italy's lockdown is now going to be extended to the middle of July. If that is true, imagine the isolated hopelessness so many people in Europe are facing. Yet we have a confident hope. So this morning, as God's house, us, what are we doing to share confidence and hope? Are we praying? Not just for those in our church community that are in need. What about our wider community? What about our neighbors? Doesn't it hit you that here we are in such built-up urban areas, yet we can become so lonely because we can't even talk to the person on the other side of the wall? Are we praying for them? How can we encourage them? How can we be sources of hope? This morning, we sit and have technology all in our hands. What can we do this morning? Moses, a servant in God's house. Jesus, the one who built God's house. Here's the one who's building God's house in the new creation. And who is God's house? What is God's house? It is us. We must hold on tightly, fill our minds with that narrative, and then, with free delight, share the confident hope we have. Father, I want to thank you this morning that we have a story, a narrative of hope, delight, and confidence. Thank you that you're a God who is building your house, us, right here, right now. that the next 20 days can be opportunities for us to be transformed by you, or we can find ourselves disappearing into the slumber of despair. Be with us today. Help us hold tightly by filling our lives with your story. And then give us wisdom and insight and courage and literally miraculous moments as we sit in our houses locked down to be sources of confident hope to those around us. This morning we want to pray for those of our community for whom food and shelter is difficult. For those of our community who are single and who are lonely. For those of us in our community for whom all of us as families together for the next 19 more odd days is going to be hard work as we learn to live together. But more than that, we pray that our country, city, that this world will realize there is a better, greater story of hope. Come and speak to us. Encourage us so we can encourage others. Amen. And just before we go, I would love to encourage each and every one of you to do that. Go onto our Facebook page. If you sense God is saying something, share it on the Facebook page with us. Go onto Instagram and share encouraging posts, stories, photos that we can use to encourage one another. Both Instagram and Facebook can be found in the icons at the bottom of our website. Go onto the website as we post things of encouragement and hopefully videos of encouragement over the week. Go onto Facebook, and if you're struggling to have a quiet time, come and join me every morning in my quiet time. And this week, as God's house, literally stuck in our own houses, show us and let's be hope and light to the world. Goodbye. See you on all our online platforms. Otherwise, same time, same place, next week.